Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, starting at verse 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of the Most High, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him, that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Father Most High of them is. For the first author of beauty hath created them. But if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionally the maker of them is seen. But yet for this they are less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking the Most High and desirous to find him. But being conversant in his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen. Howbeit, neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Most High sovereign thereof? But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, to show in art, and resemblances of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand. Now a carpenter that felleth timber, after he hath sawn down a tree meet for the purpose, and taken off all the bark skillfully round about, and hath wrought it handsomely, and made a vessel thereof fit for the service of man's life, and after spending the refuse of his work to dress his meat, hath filled himself, and taking the very refuse among those which serve to no use, being a crooked piece of wood and full of knots, hath carved it diligently, when he had nothing else to do, and formed it by the skill of his understanding, and fashioned it to the image of a man, or made it like some vile beast, laying it over with vermilion, and with paint coloring it red, and covering every spot therein. And when he had made a convenient room for it, set it in a wall, and made it fast with iron. For he provided for it that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself, for it is an image, and hath need of help. Then maketh he prayer for his goods, for his wife and his children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which hath no life. For health he calleth upon that which is weak. For life prayeth to that which is dead. For aid humbly beseecheth that which have least means to help. And for a good journey he asketh of that which cannot set a foot forward. And for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hand asketh ability to do of him that is most unable to do anything. Peace be unto you, folks. Peace be unto you. This is Elder Youngman, and the name of tonight's message is Gilgamesh. One man, two different worlds. Gilgamesh. One man, two different worlds. Now, we've introduced Nimrod, and we illustrated how he rose in the earth as a great king. So far, we've covered his rise and his kingdom primarily from the scriptural perspective, though. If you followed me long, you know that any study that I do is approached from more than one direction. The influence of Nimrod's kingdom is felt throughout the entire world. When we see the statue from Daniel's dream, the representation of the statue with the different forms of metal, the one thing that's not pressed upon us is that this is a statue of Nimrod. And and basically it's a statue of Nimrod that represents all of the great kingdoms of the earth that reigned over the Hebrew Israelite people, starting with Nebuchadnezzar. But the reason that this is a statue of Nimrod that's broken out into all of these different kingdoms is because all of these kingdoms subscribed to Nimrod's model of empire building. If you remember that from the last message, we're talking about three distinct functions. We're talking about a military aspect, we're talking about finances, and we're talking about religion. But to know in truth what the whole philosophy entails and what the history entails, we have to approach Nimrod from the perspective of the pagans themselves. Now, Nimrod has gone by many different names in history. Some of them you're using right now in your worship, but we'll get to that. One of his names is Gilgamesh. Now, the Gilgamesh epic, this is the second oldest recorded narrative of the creation, and it's a Babylonian account of the deluge. The creation of man, the creation of earth. All of these things are broken out in this Gilgamesh epic. If you know Genesis well, and if you've walked through the initial chapters of the book of Yasher, you're going to see real quickly in the Gilgamesh, in this epic, that this pagan, this pagan representation is heavily influenced by the actual scriptures, right? So essentially, what this epic does is it takes the functions of the main characters that are laid out in the scriptures, and it changes them around. So basically, any function that the Most High performs in the scriptures, each one of these functions is broken out and assigned to this fictitious, made-up God. So instead of the Father creating the world, there's some janky spirit that does it. Instead of the Father proclaiming, let there be light, and creating man, there's some pagan deity that takes his head off and bleeds on the ground. I mean, it's freaky. I mean, it's freaky. So instead of an all-powerful, all-knowing creator, and then the fallen spirits that cause evil to be known to mankind, there's a convoluted assortment of gods, either good or bad, that wrestle back and forth in conflict with one another over power. Those things that are made, those things that the Most High did in the creation of the earth and the water and the beasts, are all broken out into the activity of forces or beings. And these forces, so that man could easily accept them, were associated with the creation of the Most High. The sun, the moon, and the stars being the most prevalent. You've got the air, the rain, the earth, then animals, and all of the things of the creation were assigned a deity, which in turn was represented by an idol. So this is a very, very powerful deception, in that man looked to these dead things in order to receive their will and their judgment over their own lives instead of the Most High. So in this way, Nimrod could cause all eyes to be on something other than the Most High, and setting himself above all of those things that are distracting people, direct the worship to him. But the scriptures state Nimrod was only the prince of Tyre, not the king. The king, as stated in Ezekiel, was Satan. And it was he, basically, who was running the whole show. This fact was not broken out directly in the scriptures. But sometimes what's not written is just as powerful as what is. The existence of the Gilgamesh epic reeks of Satan's influence on Nimrod. How so? It was a cheap imitation of the Father's holy scriptures, passed off to the people in order that they could be deceived. Now there should be a very familiar sort of pattern going on there. So if you look at Isaiah 14th chapter, verse 13, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. You see, the existence of this epic fits the mind of Satan. These writings are the foundation of the Babylonian mystery religion, which was the world's first religion. That's right. It was pagan. It was devil worship. It was all kinds of reprobate, but it was the first religion known to man. That's what the Gilgamesh epic lays out. That's what the Babylonian tablets on the deluge lay out. This world pre-Nimrod had no religion. There was the Most High, and then there were those that did His will, and then there were the ones that didn't. That was it. Those were your choices, folks. What Nimrod did was create his own set of belief and guidelines. Yeah, folks. Yeah, I'm going somewhere. To fulfill the lusts and wants of the flesh. Basically, what he wanted out of the scriptures, he took and he put into these narratives. Now, you might say, not my religion. But what I'm telling you is that all organized religions are the creations of man. Some of these creations are based on and in some ways hold to the scriptures. Others are not, and follow in the way of Nimrod and paganism, whereas people come up with their own versions. The world's first state imperial religion was the Babylonian mystery religion. What's evolved over the last 4,000 years are different flavors of the same thing. It's kind of like riding by McDonald's, and then a Burger King, and then a Hardee's. You get the picture, right? And different franchises are formed. They all sell hamburgers, but the idea is to draw people by having a better hamburger. This is why you see all of the world's religions drawing closer and closer together here in the end times. None of them is about the scriptures purely. None of them. Over time, each organization has its own worldly motivation, be it money, or politics, or power. But they all trace back to what Nimrod did in his first canonization of the Holy Scriptures. Because I did a lot of study on the canon of the Bible. Woo! Hey, if you don't know, or if you don't care to know who it was that selected which books you read, I mean, if you don't have enough interest in it to know that the very people that nailed Yahshua on a cross were the same ones that selected what your Old Testament was going to look like. The same folks that legalized slavery in the whole Gentile world, the Catholic Church. They are the same people that came up with which books would be okay for consumption in the churches. Your Protestants. These are the folks that nixed the whole Apocrypha. Why? Because they were too descriptive. They were way too descriptive. You can't keep slaves when you've got things laying around like the wisdom of Sirach and the wisdom of Solomon. You can't do it. So based upon the footprint, we can see Satan's tampering, right? But another thing that the parallel reference gives us is also history that can't be addressed from within the canon. So it turns out from the parallel reference that Nimrod had a partner, and this partner of his just happened to be a hybrid, bull on the top, man on the bottom. So this, because we found out that based on him being able to proclaim himself the sun god and his weaponry and all of the war, all of the things that he used to subdue people, these were weapons that others didn't have. So now he's rolling with these these hybrid folks. Now this should sound familiar because we know that the flood was sent to take out man. This is the seed of Adam that had mingled themselves with the angels. But we also know from Enoch that the angels tampered with man and animals. So there were creatures that were walking around down there. There were creatures that were walking around that didn't have the breath of the Father. So there were some flood survivors. And it makes perfect sense. How did he know how to produce this fire and all of these weapons that he used to subdue all of these other kingdoms? And then we look at the parallel, the pagan reference, and they tell the tale. He was rolling around with some of these flood survivors. Let's see, page 78 from the Babylonian Legends of the Creation reads this way. This section is called the Babylonian Monster. There was a time in which there existed nothing but darkness and an abyss of waters, wherein resided the most hideous beings, which were produced on a twofold principle. There appeared men, some of whom were furnished with 2 wings, others with 4, and with 2 faces. They had 1 body, but 2 heads. That was of man, the other of a woman, and likewise in their several organs, both male and female. Other human figures were to be seen with the legs and horns of a goat. Some had horses' feet, while others united hindquarters of a horse with the body of a man, resembling in the shape of a of the hippo centaurs. Bulls likewise were bred there, with the heads of men and dogs, with 4-toed bodies, terminating in their extremities with tails of fishes. Horses, also with the heads of dogs, men too and other animals, with the heads and bodies of horses, and the tails of fish. In short, there were creatures in which were combined the limbs of every species of animal. In addition to these, fishes, reptiles, serpents, with other monstrous animals, which assumed each other's shape and continents, all of which were preserved delineations in the temple of Belus at Babylon. Okay, this should sound very familiar because we know that the angels messed with the animals and with men. They crossbred men and animals. That's where your centaurs and all of your minotaurs, your centaurs, your minotaurs, all of these different mythical creatures that we know from Enoch actually existed. Right? So basically, what we have going on here, because you got to understand that the canonization of the scriptures, there are a lot of the Hebrew scriptures that have been taken out of the Bible that you will not ever see in your lifetime. So what the parallel reference gives us is an insight into the other side of what's going on something that we might read in the scripture. That is why we can't be lazy, okay? We have to read scripture, we have to read history, we have to look at current events. See, this is how the people that I study with study. So Nimrod had some assistants. He was hanging around with all of these flood survivors. And guess what? This is how polytheism took on the structure of worshiping the angels. So the temptation of Nimrod, because he was blessed of the Father, right? Says it right there in Jasher. He was blessed of the Father, and then somehow he turned. This came from tampering with these halflings. And see, if you go and you look at the Neanderthal genome, that it supports everything that's written here. Why? Because a Neanderthal is a mixture of human DNA, angelic DNA, and then all kinds of animal stuff. So you had all of this stuff that was going on in the world that the Father went to clean out, right? And it's still in certain people's DNA. That's a fact. That's not even disputable. But the main thing that I want to press upon you is that this section of writing is confirmed by Genesis 6, by Enoch, and even by Jasher. The garments of Adam had a blessing on them like the bones of Moses. Both of those things were in the presence of the Father, right? And they carried the residue. The concentration of power, the concentration of the anointing of the Most High draws Satan and demon spirits like flies. Nimrod's fame made him visible among the sons of Noah. Japheth's people intermingled with the remnant of the giants. And they did that first, and they lost their Adamic seed as a result. It makes sense that there were remnants in the lands of Ham, specifically in Canaan. It's evidence in Exodus, where the children of Israel were tasked with destroying giants, i.e. Nephilim. Had to destroy them completely from the land and take no wives, no prisoners, and keep none of their things. That was their charge. So basically, the first canonized or edited or prepared rendition of the scriptures was the pagan version of the first religion, the Babylonian mystery religion. And these tablets of Nineveh outlining how Nimrod, the government, the authority, the power, how they wanted the state religion to look. It was all based on the scriptures, just like today's organized religions. And they did that to allow a reprobate and an example of how not to live in the way of the Most High. They did that so that this person could be passed off as noble and taking the place of the Most High himself. So what is the religion? So what is the origin of all organized religion? Nimrod and paganism. Look it up. I'm not just talking. Well, folks, that's the message tonight. I hope y'all got something from it. Tune in next time. We're going to move on to the Church of Babylon. You all be blessed. Elder out.